Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment by Eckhart Tolle. Do you think time travel is a real possibility, or do you dismiss it as a science fiction plot device? The renowned spiritual teacher and author Eckhart Tolle claims that we travel through time every day without even realizing it. There are many times during the day when we find ourselves thinking about the past or future, which can lead to mental time travel. The book The Power of Now examines how the mind can be both a useful tool and a hindrance to being fully present in the moment. Negative emotions and erroneous beliefs cause us to miss out on the joy of the present moment. Consequently, we squander precious time and miss out on moments of wonder and happiness. In order to enjoy the fullness of life and appreciate who we truly are, we must let go of our preconceived notions about how our lives should be. There are two issues with this. Focusing too much on the past or the future can cause us to miss out on the present moment, and these thoughts don't always lead us to happy places. We are prone to dwelling on the negative aspects of our lives, such as regrets about the past or anxiety about the future. Author Eckhart Tolle is a well-known spiritual teacher. Overthinking clogs our minds, so he emphasizes the importance of living in the moment. Because he has spent so much time working on his own ability to live in the now, he can speak from personal experience when he instructs. Up until his 30th birthday, Tolle struggled with anxiety and suicidal depression, and it took him a long time to find peace and awareness in the present moment. In the case of Eckhart Tolle, his transformation occurred in an instant. His usual dread and despair rose one night at the age of 29. He'd woken up feeling this way before, but something very strange happened afterward that he couldn't explain. Tolle had an epiphany sparked by a simple but profound realization. He had the sudden realization that the voice in his head wasn't him. Instead of getting caught up in his thoughts and feelings, he realized that there was a higher level of consciousness that he could tap into instead. This allowed him to see his thoughts and feelings for what they really were, a fleeting mental/emotional phenomenon. Thoughts no longer defined him, he no longer felt bound to them. A felt realization rather than an intellectual one, this miraculous spiritual awakening put an end to his lifelong mental anguish and suicidal thoughts. In addition, he was left with an unwavering peace of mind that has accompanied him ever since. Throughout the years, he has become one of the world's most popular contemporary spiritual teachers. Here, we'll take a look at how being present allows us to reclaim our inner peace and well-being. Also discussed will be the mental obstacles that prevent us from fully experiencing the present moment, as well as some techniques for re-entering the present moment. We can use the power of now not only as a path to spiritual enlightenment but as a means of becoming more conscious, so that our minds don't rule us. We're told to accept our pain and suffering, and to be more aware of our surroundings. We're also taught to trust our instincts rather than our rational minds, as well as to be aware of our own egos. Our lives and how we see ourselves in the world will change if we put these ideas into practice and truly begin to live in the moment. Enlightenment is a treasure that lies within each and every one of us. When it comes to spiritual awakening, we tend to think of it as a superhuman quality that can be attained only by the most devout. Enlightenment, on the other hand, is an ever-present state of being that aims to bring about a joyful oneness with all of existence. The issue is that we frequently look outside of ourselves for answers. Even though we may focus on our achievements, wealth or experiences as a source of happiness, a lasting and profound sense of calm actually comes from inside. To better understand this, consider the parable of the enlightened servant. On one particular day, a stranger walked by a beggar who had spent most of his life sitting on the side of the road. The beggar approached the stranger in his usual manner, holding out his old baseball cap and asking if they could spare any change. Instead of walking by, the stranger inquired as to what the beggar was sitting on after he replied that he had no change. According to the beggar, it was nothing special, he had been sitting on it all his life. Instead of continuing on his way, the stranger asked me a new question. "Is there any point in looking inside the box?" he exclaimed, perplexed, when he asked the beggar. "You won't find anything there." It took the stranger some time before he told the beggar to open the box and look inside. When the man approached the beggar, he paused before attempting to open the old box. The beggar's discovery was astounding, the old box was brimming with gold. Rather than looking outside of ourselves for happiness, this story's moral teaches that true contentment comes from within. There is a treasure inside of each of us that is greater than anything the world has to offer. There is a blissful contentment that comes from recognizing and accepting our true selves within each of us. Trying to comprehend it is difficult because it cannot be explained or mentally comprehended. It's a feeling that only comes to us when our minds are still and our attention is firmly fixed on the here and now. To put it another way, the more present-oriented we are, the more in tune with our true nature we become and the richer our experience of life becomes. Obstacles that prevent us from living in the moment. In the past, have you ever found yourself completely engrossed in your own thoughts, or overly identifying with your own ego? This way of being often causes us to feel anxious and prevents us from experiencing the oneness of all beings that we all share. There are those thoughts that keep us awake at night or whirl around in our heads, making us feel anxious and overwrought. It's common for us to have high expectations for the future and to worry about whether or not we'll be able to achieve them. What if we don't succeed? We've all done it, and it's known as mental time travel. Because they keep us from being present and positive, negative thoughts like these make it harder to achieve our goals. A peaceful and present awareness is even harder to maintain when so much of our cultural obsession is based on clock time rather than psychological time. When we're preoccupied with thoughts of the past or the future, we're in psychological time. Mind wandering is a normal part of life, so there's no reason to feel guilty about it. As it turns out, thinking about the past helps us to identify ourselves, and thinking about the future provides us with a sense of hope. Thought wandering can have both a positive and negative effect on one's well-being. It's human nature to dwell on the negative aspects of our lives, even if we'd prefer to focus on the positives. As an example, the things that went wrong, or the things that could go wrong in the future. Focusing too much on the negative aspects of one's past can lead to feelings of pain or regret. When we focus on the negative aspects of our future, we end up feeling anxious and stressed. Moreover, even if we have a positive outlook on the future, we often fail to fully appreciate the present moment. Because it increases anxiety, waiting is a mental and physical drain. An inner split occurs because you're in the present, but you're not experiencing it because you're looking forward to future events that are supposed to make you happy. The film The Shawshank Redemption has a memorable line that sums up this perfectly: "Get busy living. Alternatively, you can get to work on your death." No one of us should be sitting in the wings, anxiously awaiting the curtain to rise on their lives. In other words, while goals are essential, we must be aware of how we perceive and interact with them. The dangers of the ego. Over-identification with our ego has the unfortunate side effect of making us identify with our false self. Because our minds tell us stories about ourselves and the events in our lives, and we tend to believe them, the ego prevents us from being truly present. Statements like "I think, therefore I am" allegedly started the problem, according to the author. Descartes succumbed to a basic blunder in which we mistakenly believe that thinking is the same as being and that our thoughts are the source of our identity. When we identify too much with our thoughts, it can distort our perspective on the world and on ourselves. False self is an interpretation of reality rather than reality itself. Societal standing, material possessions, employment, praise from others, and religious convictions are all examples of ways in which the ego can be shaped. It's impossible for us to connect with our true selves because the ego is always in flux, making it impossible for us to connect with our true selves. A single bad investment can alter our social status, we could be laid off tomorrow, and our appearance will evolve over time. Egos are driven by things that don't last, and they don't revolve around our inner selves or living in the here and now. Ego makes us wish we could change the way things are. When we think and feel this way, we resist the opportunity to live in the present moment. In addition, our egos can cause us great pain. The ego is hardwired to make us feel unsatisfied and unfinished. It's the voice in our heads telling us that we'll be happy once we have this or that. It also does whatever it can to keep itself safe. When we're told we've done something wrong, we may react irrationally. Because we place such a high value on our thoughts, we fear that if they turn out to be incorrect, we will lose our sense of self. This mentality prevents us from experiencing true happiness because it prevents us from living in the moment. The influence of identity. The ego's influence extends beyond the confines of the mind. Emotions are generated by our thoughts, and our bodies respond to these thoughts in a physical way. For instance, physical pain is frequently a symptom of mental anguish. The pain body, as its name suggests, is a repository for the body's accumulated pain. The vibrational energy that surrounds us reacts to similar pain and rises to the surface. A painful emotional reaction may cause your pain body to show its ugly head, for example. In order to avoid this, negative emotions must be dealt with in order to prevent them from becoming a constant reminder of the pain we carry with us throughout our lives. As with our thoughts, strong negative emotions can also keep us from experiencing the here and now and from connecting with our true self. Suffering is often where we learn the most about life and ourselves, so we should never let our ego get in the way of facing it. Using obstacles to grow. We've talked about the 3 things that get in the way of being fully present and re-establishing contact with our innermost selves. First and foremost, We become distracted by our own thoughts. Our third mistake is to cling on to past hurts and to over-identify with that part of us that is egocentric. How can we get around them now that we've identified them? Watching our thoughts and emotions without attaching ourselves is the first step. We can achieve this by focusing on the here and now. It is only when we realize that we are not our thoughts that we begin to experience true freedom. Becoming a witnessing presence is a crucial practice to begin implementing. To do this, you must stop thinking and start paying attention. Observing and listening to our thoughts without identifying with them is the first step. We will be able to attain a higher state of awareness and enlightenment by engaging in this practice. The next time you have a thought, close your eyes and ask yourself what it is that comes to mind. This seemingly inconsequential query will have a significant impact on your mental patterns. Furthermore, if you do this exercise regularly, you'll find that you're better able to stay in the present moment when your mind wanders to the past or the future. You'll no longer be a passenger in your own thoughts if you adopt a constant state of alertness. So the idea is to always ask yourself, what will be my next thought? When you're having a lot of thoughts, there is a moment where your mind is refocused on your question, and the previous thought is erased. In order to simply be aware and separate ourselves from our thoughts, we must practice patience. In order to take control of our thoughts and be present in the moment, it is likely that we will have created a pause in the flow of thoughts, which will allow us to do so. The most important thing to remember is that thinking is only a small part of consciousness. It's important to understand that the mind is only a small part of a much larger intelligence, and that realizing this is the first step toward awakening is crucial. Make a point of staying in the here and now. It is essential that we remain in the present moment if we are to maintain this awakened presence. We need to shift our focus from our thoughts to our bodies in order to stay grounded in the here and now. It's important to pay attention to our body's signals because they can help us recognize our emotions and the thoughts that keep them in place. What percentage of the time do you pay attention to how you're breathing? Breathwork is an easy way to bring our bodies into a state of presence. This is a good time to pay attention to your breath. Take a few moments and observe it, rather than trying to force it into a specific rhythm. Often, this practice can be difficult because painful memories may arise while you're trying to concentrate. The goal is to simply observe your body without judging it. The only way to move forward from this point is with a spirit of forgiveness and acceptance. Anxiety or stress can be the cause of clenching our jaw or tightening our shoulders when we become aware of this. Like our thoughts, we can learn to observe our emotions instead of being sucked into or overcome by them. You can try to let go of your negative thoughts, but if you can't, try to observe it as a separate mental and emotional process. When we stop participating in our emotions and instead begin observing them, we can begin to detach from them. It's not always easy to stay in the present moment and be present with whatever arises. As a result, we need to cultivate a mindset of forgiveness, acceptance, and surrender. Acquire a deep understanding of the world around you. Developing a keen awareness of reality as it truly is essential to accepting the present moment. It's about being able to see clearly and seeing past distorted perceptions and irrational impulses. It's also about being able to see and feel life as it is, rather than reacting to it. Our deepest self can express itself through this, and we can recognize what is truly important to us. Acceptance of the present isn't passive resignation, and it's important to keep that in mind. To put it another way, it's about staying awake and taking action. There are a variety of approaches to dealing with difficult situations in the here and now. For example, we have 3 options when faced with a situation we don't like. First and foremost, we have the option of attempting to remove ourselves from the predicament. The second option is to see if there is any way to influence the outcome. The third option is to accept the situation as if we had chosen it ourselves, which is the most difficult. When faced with adversity, it can be difficult to consider the final option. Losing a loved one is never an easy thing to deal with. As a result, accepting that death is inevitable can help us move toward acceptance and focus on the present moment. Alchemy, or the ability to transform negative stress and suffering into something positive, is the goal. To sum it up, there is an indestructible part of us that is beyond our minds and our daily routines. However, we must first enter the present moment in order to experience it. As a result, we must give up our critical thinking abilities. Humans, by nature, are thoughtful and analytical creatures, so this process may seem counterintuitive. Nevertheless, we are taught insightful practices to reset our thinking processes. This book's message is that our minds can be a trap and can lock us in a loop where we only ever experience the past and future. We all need to understand that the present moment is our only chance at happiness. As a result, it's our responsibility to live in the present moment. The rest of our lives will fall into place if we're able to do this and our inner self is happy. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.